This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness, or so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. Hi there from a nice and warm Newcastle upon Tyne for a change. Yep, the sun is shining this morning as I record this introduction to the episode. Now again, this episode is a short bite, this time with Penny Mallory, who joined me towards the start of the podcast. Episode 37 was titled World-Class Thinking, World-Class Behaviour. So, on the theme of high standards, on the theme of commitment and sacrifices, this is what this episode is all about, where Penny goes on to share some insights into her mentality as a top-class elite performer. Enjoy. Before you got to the top of the tree, it sounds like you were gradually building your mental toughness, if you like, along the way through those experiences.
I absolutely was. I didn't know I was doing that, to be fair. And you know as well as I do, it's all developable, it's all improvable. And I didn't realise that I was developing all of these things actually since I was born. But I became incredibly resilient and incredibly determined, and I didn't get distracted. And I was so focused, and it all was working really well for me. I realised that if you have those attributes, you can make extraordinary things happen. Some of it still took me by surprise. You know, I still wanted stuff. And when it happened, I was like, whoa, I didn't really expect it to happen. But I probably more committed than most people. I was prepared to give up absolutely everything in pursuit of my dream. And again, I'm quite a risk taker still. So I don't mind putting stuff on the line because ultimately I believe in my ability. So maybe things like that, where I'm prepared to push a little bit further than most to get what I want, did make a difference.
Do you want to just tell the listeners a little bit more about that drive there and pushing to the edge?
Yeah, I mean, I'm slightly embarrassed about it, but I'm also really proud of it because I suppose, and you'll know this better than most, Dave, high performers will block out certain things because their performance or the thing that they're after is the most important thing. So if I want to be Formula One world champion 6 times over, I'm going to have to make sacrifices to do that. And okay, I wasn't going to be Formula One, but I wanted to be a rally driver. I was prepared to make sacrifices. I was prepared to put stuff on the line. And I think most people probably wouldn't put on the line what I did. So I didn't have any possessions at the time. So I was prepared to leave my husband for it, my boyfriend. At the time, he became my husband. And then because I'm so focused and determined, my marriages don't work. I've been married loads of times and I'm rubbish at it. So there is always a price to pay for performing at that level because you do sort of push yourself out of the ordinary mediocre thing. And most people aren't prepared to push themselves out of there, pay the price, because they want an easier life. I didn't want an easier life. I wanted that life. So I think a lot of this stuff is about a real commitment. And again, I talk about commitment when I'm doing my keynotes, and I talk about you can be committed a bit or you can be committed. It's almost a bit like pregnancy. You're either pregnant or you're not. You're committed or you're not. There's not levels of commitment for me. And I was completely 100% committed to doing whatever I needed to do. But, you know, I compromised my social life, my relationships, my work, my money, everything suffered because I wanted it so badly. So that's why it doesn't suit most people to operate at that level. Most people want a more balanced life than that.
How would you look after yourself in terms of your energy levels and in order to make sure that those commitment tanks were topped up?
I'm not sure that I was that self-aware, if I'm honest, at the time. I'm much more self-aware now. I think by achieving something, it gave me so much energy and motivation that I just set myself so I've always been a goal setter. I set myself a bigger, bolder goal every time. And that's what energized me. That's what excited me. Because I'm like, wow, I've done it again. I've made it here. Right. I need another one. And I got there. I'm like, I need another one. So I was always on this relentless mission to do more. Again, that's not easy to live with when somebody's like that. But yeah, I think it's just that focus energizes me. It still does, if I'm honest. But I think at the time I wasn't aware that I needed to top up my energy or take a step back and have a good look. I was way too into what I was doing to have that level of self-awareness. And it comes with age, I suppose, doesn't it? Like for all of us.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So were you not someone who, were you someone who celebrated your successes, or were you very just quick to move on there?
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember one particular night celebrating winning something, and that was it. No, it was always move on. Next. Yep, great. That's good. Okay, next. And that's probably one of my regrets, actually, is that I didn't spend a little bit more time celebrating the wins. And just reflecting a little bit and sort of giving myself a pat on the back, going, yeah, you did good, girl. It was always next. So that's a bit of a shame that I don't really remember. People say, what were the high points? What were the most? I don't know, really. And that's a bit of a shame. I probably should have been spending a bit more time in the moment. I was always, and always have been, probably always next, looking forward.
So I suppose knowing what you know now in terms of being a mental toughness practitioner and coach speaker, is there anything you would have done a little bit differently that you think would have actually improved your performance?
I think there's lots of things I could have done better. I was quite good at the fitness stuff, but I think I could have gone to another level altogether. I probably should have. I found a coach to help me with my performance. He never saw me, never saw my car, never saw my race suit, never came to a rally. I could have done much more coaching. Because that completely transformed my performance. I should have started that early. I wish I had, and done more of it. So the psychological aspects of it, I wish I'd invested more in. Probably more physical fitness. And probably building relationships and with teams. I always thought I was in competition with people, when actually it's taken me a lifetime to work this stuff out, David. I don't need to be in competition with anyone. We can all work together. And that's taken me quite a long time to get my head around. So I'm making myself do lots of working together with people, which is why it's so lovely to be invited by you to do this as well. So collaborations, I should have been better at that in hindsight.
So that was really interesting listening back to Penny's thoughts there. Her thoughts about commitment, her thoughts about sacrifice, and then the goal-setting approach that she took. Now today, I notice an awful lot in my work where athletes, where coaches and parents come to me telling me that they're not focused enough, or their kids aren't focused enough, or their athletes aren't focused enough, that they get distracted so easily, that their concentration slips and they become forgetful. That's right, the world we live in today has got an awful lot of noise and distractions. The words ADHD also seem to get bandied around an awful lot these days, sometimes correctly, sometimes incorrectly. Now, when we think about people who are distracted, they're obviously not going to perform to their optimum. They're not going to put in the levels of training that are required to get to the top, to fulfill their potential. I'm going to give you an example here of a professional goalkeeper I supported a few years ago. They came to me when they were approaching the end of their contract with a professional club in the Championship. Basically, they had about 6 months in their eyes to save their career. So we sat down and we set goals. For that 6-month period, we also actually looked at the dream goal, and that was to play in the Premier League. We then chunked it down. The dream goal, the longer term goal, the 6-month goal was broken down into monthly goals, into weekly goals, and then into daily goals. And we came to the conclusion, or the player came to the conclusion, that he needed to show the coaches that he was prepared to work hard, work much harder than he had done in the past. This was going to have 2 benefits. One, the coaches would take notice of his newfound behaviours, which incidentally were 30 minutes of extras per day that he said he would do on top of his normal training and matches. Secondly, he also thought it would make a big difference to his footwork. So this was his goal for 30 minutes each day when he was at the training ground, was to work on his footwork, work on playing the ball out from the back and those skills. Even if it meant spending 30 minutes kicking a ball off a wall so he could improve his touch and gain more confidence. That's what he wanted to do. 30 minutes a day would improve his confidence no end in that respect, he thought. So this guy went out and he did it. And no surprises, he actually did earn that contract. The coaches were pleasantly surprised by the way he turned things around with his attitude. And now, years later, he still remains at that club. He's a regular and he's doing very well for himself. He may not be in the Premier League, at least yet, but as I say, he is doing very well for himself. And he doesn't have those doubts. His footwork has improved dramatically, and I'm guessing his coaches also see him very, very differently. They'll trust him an awful lot more. So, what if you had an extra 30 minutes in your day? What would you do with it? You might even want to just drill it down to 10 minutes. Because if you think about it, 10 minutes of training every day, I'm going to say for 365 days, to make it easy, equates to 3,650 minutes, which in total is just over 60 hours. Can you imagine if you did 60 hours worth of practice on a particular skill in your chosen field? How much better you would be at that skill. And then, if you did it over 5 years, you'd be looking at 18,250 minutes, or over 304 hours. What difference would that make to your life, to the way that you perform? So maybe what you need to do now is start scheduling this 10 minutes in. Consider what behaviours you get embroiled in that you don't need to be doing. Perhaps 10 minutes scrolling on your phone where you could be doing something very different, which is going to help you. So some more food for thought for you there. Please do also sign up to the Mental Edge newsletter, where there's going to be more ideas and advice and a host of resources to help you, to help athletes, to help coaches, to help parents, so that you can consider different ways that can actually go on to optimize your performance and gain an edge. Have a great day. If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sport psychology resources. The Sport-Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams, or if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport-excellence.co.uk to find out more.